What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another People-First Playbook. I don't know about you all, but like that music just gets you in the mood to like group. I had a little bit of a headache coming into this. Nothing some Tylenol can't fix, but that music always just gets me in such a good mood. So welcome, everyone, to the People-First Playbook. This is episode 3. We're going to be talking about scaling success with a people-first approach for our good friends at Zuddl. Shout out to Jason Widup, Barath, the entire team over there. And for those that don't know, the whole show theme purpose of People-First Playbook is to create an integrated revenue campaign in sub 30 minutes. We're getting better every single week. Last week was 32 minutes. We might hit 30 minutes this week. We'll see. We have 2 fantastic guests with us today. You might see an additional third person on the screen. We've got Mark Killens, who is the co-founder and CEO of TAC, my partner. We have Andy. Shout out to Andy. Andy's always with me every single week, but we thought bringing Mark on to this specific episode as it relates to this space would be a perfect gateway. Mark has been a CMO in the event tech space. He knows it better than most. I work for him there, so I feel like, we're 2 pros when it comes to this type of thing. But Andy, before I throw it over to you, one quick question for everyone tuning in. If you do have questions, and please bring your questions. We want to make this interactive. Throw them in the chat. If we have time at the end of the event, we will get to them. If not, we will personally follow up with every single one of you. And with that, Andy, I'm throwing it over to you for that campaign intro.
All right. So Zuddl, we're talking about event management platform, event tech, right? Which is why we have 2 event guys in their past lives join us here today. So let's talk a little bit about what Zuddl offers, right? I say event management platform, but that can mean so many different things. Well, it handles pretty much everything from soup to nuts, between registration and ticketing, all the way through to broadcast, if we're talking about virtual events, to badges, through across virtual, hybrid, and in-person events. It's pretty much, as I kind of look at it, the all-in-one event management platform. So the reason that Zuddl came to us is they were originally built for virtual first events, but that's changed over the last year or so. They've rebuilt the platform, retooled it to be more agile, and handle both in-person and virtual events. And it's this new updated offering that they're coming into and really have capitalized on in the market with, that Jason, who Nick just mentioned, is seeking ideas from us 3 on. So we're looking for fresh ideas, things like that. And because of that, that's really the challenge. It's breaking through those perceptions that the market may have around Zuddl's historic offering. But really, when we think about it from a bigger perspective, and Mark, I mean, you can chime in here too, event tech is a very crowded and competitive market, isn't it?
Super crowded and competitive, Andy and Nick. Yeah, I mean, it might be one of the most when you think about MarTech. And yeah, I got a lot of thoughts around this topic for sure. So thank you for having me on the show. It's an honor to be with you guys. Let's have some fun.
Yeah. So Nick, I did a little bit of research to get kind of some context around what this crowd space actually looks like. And just quick numbers. I go to G2 and I look at event management platforms. There's 226 listings. That's people that have actually claimed their profile. So think about all those that have not. You go to Capterra and you look at event management software, you're up to 870. That's a freaking buttload of event tech that exists out there. Now, Jason also called out a couple when he reached out to us. He mentioned C-Event, Bizzabo, Goldcast, right? Those things. So when we think about like what the true ask is here, besides fresh ideas, right? Zuddl has the momentum, right? It has the growth already, and it's already using that people-first approach that we've talked about on 3 episodes, but through all of our content collectively together. And it's how do we kind of scale that success further by innovation, experimentation, those fresh ideas that we're going to talk about here today, but also maintaining that people-first approach without defaulting back to traditional playbooks that, let's all face it and be real here, are outdated and no longer work. So Nick, let's talk a little bit about who Zuddl's audience is for this new offering. Do you want to take that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the beauty is, so Mark and I have been partnering with Zuddl as well. So this is like, I feel like I kind of extra know this, which is good. Typically, they're going after marketing leaders, VPs, as well as those directly responsible with events, experimental marketing. their kind of sweet spot for ICP around the org size is mid-market, mostly like 500 to 1,000 employees. In their ICP details, there's someone that does field marketing events. I came up as a field marketer, so I can definitely relate there. User groups and webinars, and ticketed and non-paid user conferences and virtual conferences. So, great examples here is, folks like Marketing Profs or Gartner, like the way that they brand themselves, the folks that we work with, that, Andy works with, Kofax and Bentley Systems. So I think when you're thinking about pains and challenges that we're looking to solve for this specific audience, why do field and event marketers need to care about this? You mentioned it, 226 event management platforms. And as someone that has used a variety of event management platforms, both virtual and in person, I can say that, you're just scratching the surface. There's so many up there. There's so many that are just popping up every single day. And so it's another platform. Cool. Why should I care? What separates you from all of these other platforms out there? And if you can't answer that why for this specific audience, and as a field marketer, I don't need to know that, like, hey, I can run virtual events and change the branding. If you can tell me, hey, I'm going to take your analytics and I'm going to show you how you tie ROI to this so that when your field marketing budget comes up at the end of the year, you can go to your CMO or VP or whoever it is and say, hey, look, these events, whether virtual or in person, drove X amount of pipeline, X amount of revenue. The pipeline velocity was this. Time to close was this. Like, then you're adding a layer that adds so much more to the conversation. And let's be honest, these platforms aren't cheap. Mark and I know we come from this area. We've bought plenty of stuff like this. Like, you could be spending anywhere from, $5,000 up to $50,000 a year, depending on what you're looking for. So solve your why, and it will help you back into how you solve a lot of these pain points.
Now let's take that up a level here too. And Mark, when we talk about triggering events, right, we typically think about triggering events from the perspective of what's triggering the event that brings this campaign into motion. But like we talk about here on People-First Playbook, let's put our eyes and ears around the fact of what's the triggering event for a customer or potential customer of Zuddl's to start exploring an event management platform. Can you talk a little about some of those triggering events?
Yeah. And I would also challenge Zuddl's ICP. I want to do that too. So one is right now 100% all in one. Every company, small, big, or super big, is looking for all in one when it comes to event technology. So all in one for online, in person, and all in one in event tech can mean a lot of different things, because you might go all the way to say, well, you have your, hotel vendor, solution as part of the all in one. That's getting to the more enterprise extreme level, but that's one. Cost is another one. Cost consolidation and all in one are kind of tied at the hip. And I also feel like the other thing is ease of use flexibility, because a lot of event teams, first off, event teams are always strapped, Andy. Right, Nick, you know that. Like, there's you don't have any resources for the most part, and like with a downish economy, the resources even get a little bit tighter. But going back to like that ICP, I would look at how many people are actually playing in that ICP. Because my gut tells me they might want to niche down a bit more. And this reminds me of like what HubSpot did, right? HubSpot found the sweet spot of 20 to 200. And if you can find the right economics for what you're selling, for that audience, and that audience, needs events, and I would argue every business needs events. So like, what's the scale of the events? How many online do they need versus in person? Maybe it's not 20 to 200. Maybe it's a different range. But I think a lot of the questions when it comes to your point, and I agree with it, Nick, about differentiation and why at the brand level, why at the solution level, why at the product level, and how are you different? Like, it comes down to what does that ICP segment care about and the problems they have? Because 200, 500 person company is definitely different than 5,000, definitely different than 50,000. So that's going to dictate your product roadmap, product strategy. Broadly though, Andy, to your question, trigger events, it's a kind of across the board what I'm hearing.
Okay. I think to just add on top of that, one of the things that Jason mentioned when he reached out to us is, how many event tech solutions out there eventually burn the people that are using them, right? Maybe it's poor support, maybe it's poor experience, right? The badges don't work, or they're late, or the registration system just goes down randomly. The app doesn't work when the attendees are actually at the user conf. And I think that's the other triggering event that I would layer on top of what you just talked about, Mark, is from the audience perspective. Great, we have something, we tried it out, and now post-mortem, the event that we just had, or retrospective, if you don't want to be too morbid, what went wrong, what went right, and there's a triggering conversation that gets wrapped into that, especially when it comes up for contract renewals and things like that.
Agreed.
So as we talk about kind of our ideas for growth here on top of the existing campaign, each of us, we're going to do a round robin for each of us. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on right now in that people first model that we're going to build on top of. So when we think about what's underneath the surface, what are those operational aspects of Zuddl's current campaigns? I mean, I'm not going to mince words here. There's a lot of social activity going on. They are engaging their audience. There's a diversified feed of content, from webinars to live shows to infographics, all visually pleasing. I don't go to the social feed and I feel like I'm going to see the same thing as I scroll further down. No, it's completely diversified. And I think that kind of shows through then with the partnerships that they're creating and leveraging, the paid media that they're using interspersely, right, to get the message out, to distribute to that ICP. But when we build on top of that, right, we have a great foundation, but we need to be creative here as we think through our growth ideas, because we're scaling it up, right? We're building on top of something that's unique, right? Something that's innovative, that experimentation wise, and is really ultimately impactful. So Nick, why don't you go first and talk about your idea for growth on top of this existing motion?
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously, like you mentioned, they have partnerships with a lot of the people in the event space. But I think a huge thing that, Mark and I talk about is the partnership ecosystem overlaying the entire people first mentality. And I think it's like, you can't go to market alone today. You have to go with others. And again, they have the partnerships, but how do you expand that? And I think there is potential to expand that, not only with others in the event space, but influencers, creators, for example. There's, catering or audiovisual equipment rental, or even like non-competing event management platforms that might complement what they do. And maybe it's something where it's like, hey, they kind of like, if they niche down or like focus on more on a certain area, they can take that piece. You can do a lot within co-hosting events. I mean, again, when you're dog fooding, which, for those that don't know, if you're like using your own product, it's like, I used to work for Motorola. It's like we would dog food our own software updates, products, all those things. I mean, we did it at other companies as well. But I think a big piece is there is like, how do you go to market with others, either in the event space or creators or influencers that you can join and do co-marketing events, co-creation of content that takes it up a level. Because ultimately what you're doing is you're borrowing trust, reach, and authority from these specific people. And it's especially if you're going into markets where maybe you're not as strong in the US or a specific region in the US, or you want to go to EMEA or APAC or whatever it is, like you tap into the people on the ground that know those markets better than most, and you co-create content with them or partner with them to take it to the next level. But you have to establish mutual benefits. Maybe it's something where it's like, yeah, obviously, there's a monetary component of it, but maybe there's a piece where it's like, hey, we're going to give you this platform for free. How can you use this platform in your own daily routine? Because again, it's just going to go to show, hey, look, I'm using this for my events. I'm not promoting Zuddl, for example, but they see it as the platform that's running all of our events. And if they have a flawless experience, it's only a win-win for everyone. So you have to identify those potential partners. You have to establish those mutual benefits. And then you have to figure out what is the strategy to leverage these creators, these influences, these other partnerships that take it up a notch beyond just what you already have amongst like integration partners. So I would say that's one of my biggest ideas for growth. I think there's a lot in partnerships that they could take advantage of that they aren't taking advantage of right now.
Well, to build off of that too, you're talking like partner-led growth. 100% agree. You mentioned integration partners at the end.
Yeah.
I would take that idea to a whole nother stratosphere. This goes back to ICP development. What if Zuddl made their product roadmap and product for a specific CRM type platform? Then it's not like an integration partner. Like, no, we're purpose built for HubSpot. We're purpose built for Microsoft Dynamics. What, it's either HubSpot or Salesforce probably. No one in event tech has done that yet either, which surprises me, quite frankly, because that's not just that's just not an integration partnership. That is a go-to-market. Hey, you got 100,000 customers. We're going to recommend you as the one we trust and is best in class, all-in-one solution. So things to and that goes for any industry, by the way. So that's just things to consider at an even higher maybe strategy level when Zuddl, you're thinking about 2024 planning, or anyone listening. How can you potentially change the trajectory of your growth through a very strategic partnership within an ecosystem that is big, that gives you distribution leverage and some advantage?
So before we get to your kind of idea for growth, Mark, just the one thing I wanted to mention here is when you guys were at AirMeet, one of the first instances that I had of seeing the platform in motion is when, Mark, you actually co-hosted a Peak community roundtable, and it was actually broadcast through AirMeet. So that's just a great kind of simplistic way of using that partner-led opportunity to showcase the product informally, but in a way where you're actively engaging an audience such as me, but also all the members of that community who do events, right? They're doing events on their own, and you're creating, which I'll talk about a little bit of a flywheel impact of that. But Mark, before we get to my idea, how about we talk about yours from a customer and content-led growth perspective?
For me, yeah, you're making this shift. You have to lean into the story of people, stories of people who've done it. And so the customers at Zuddl that, hey, I went from this solution just online, to now in person. And how did that play out? And bring them, to Nick's point, with you in the go-to-market story. And that's, yeah, Zuddl should probably be their best customer. And that's what surprises me a lot about the event companies. I mean, I think for AirMeet, we tried our best to be our best customer for the online side, right? We really didn't have too much in-person stuff. But like you have to be your best customer. I always, when I was buying technology at a VP of marketing CMO level, I always questioned Andy, like, this company could be really good at using their product, but like they're not doing that great of it. Like, why would I trust this as much? So yeah, I think there's definitely something there. Customers though should be one of your main channels for making the transition. So I think the marketing team needs to get really close to the customer success team at Zuddl. Like if the marketing team and customer success team aren't like connected at the hip, that should change pretty quickly. And the marketing team, especially the product marketers, should be embedded into those conversations and learning as much as they can to then refine that messaging, refine the offers, refine the go-to-market. To me, that's that, because it's a product pivot. To me, that's like the ultimate thing that has to happen. And then along with, Zuddl should probably create as part of this campaign as an offer, like a customer advisory board of customers who've made this transition. That's then using their voice and their beliefs and actual outcomes to create goodwill and awareness at the beginning of the flywheel, right? So you're going from the customer-led side to the community-led side to Nick's point, putting them in the market, and then you're the best customer of your own product. I got a few other ideas, but I know we have 11 minutes supposedly left, so I don't want to go too far.
All right, save it for another day, man. Save it for another day. All right, so you're talking about the flywheel. I'm talking about the flywheel, but I'm accelerating a little bit. And my idea is harnessing the power of attendee feedback. So I want to think about this from the perspective of looking beyond the actual buyers of Zuddl to the actual people that are most deeply affected by its usage. And that's the event attendees. And my idea here is, how do we solicit and gather insights and feedback, the goods, the bads of the event experience, right? I go to South by Southwest. What did I like about the process? What did I hate about the process? I go to CES, same thing. I go to something like Marketing Profs B2B Forum in Boston, same idea, right? But here's the cool thing is there's a couple different ways we can solicit this information. If it's in-person events, we can do street style videos if we have somebody on the ground. Or we can do it as a follow-up, right? People post all the time, hey, I'm here, or really enjoying this session, right? Just a minor piece of social monitoring is going to open up the doors to reach out to these folks and just start a casual conversation. Hey, I saw you were at CES. I saw you were at, B2BMX, things like that. Tell me a little bit about your experience kind of registering. Like, what were some of the things you found valuable? What were some of those that you didn't? Because what I'm seeing here then is we're leveraging those insights and we're creating a lot of powerful outputs of that. Number one is we're creating a story and a narrative that we can take in an ABM model to the event organizers. We basically just solicited data that we can bring to the table and give them value when they're doing their retrospective and postmortem of the event.
Smart.
While also keeping Zuddl top of mind, because we're the ones that are delivering that information to them. So we're automatically part of the conversation with the executive suite or anybody else involved in those stakeholders. The other thing we're doing here is we're creating a source of data that allows us to create snackables. Maybe it's the street style videos, right? Maybe it's infographics and studies out of the data that we're capturing. And we're able to elevate that experience of the social feeds to be more of a industry thought leader when it comes to event marketing beyond what Zuddl's already doing. The other two things that I see out of this then is we're also gathering insights for product innovation and internal road mapping beyond just whatever the Zuddl customers are saying they want. No, we're actually taking into account what the end customer wants from those attendees to elevate that experience. And then lastly, through all this, we're actually creating that flywheel, right? We're creating awareness and conversation within the event organizers. We're also creating a relationship with attendees, which probably run their own events. So we're creating this rapid motion here of more awareness, more demand being created, as well as the content that's coming out of all of this that we can use in all of our different marketing motions.
Yeah, I love those points. That's some really good, deep ideas in that. It's almost like Zuddl can think of each event as its own community-led growth initiative. Right? Like that's what I was kind of getting at when I was listening to you. It's like, yeah, you have a 50-person event, 500-person event. Treat that as a demand creation moment and use that in all the different ideas you just shared. And I'm sure there's others to help, spin the flywheel. And then if Zuddl ever goes as far as to create an owned community, like more of a member-led motion, it could be interesting to kind of tie those pieces together as well, where you're just then, of course, naturally trying to move people into this experience where I do think that's important because education when it comes to events is lacking. And there's something to be said there. But again, not enough time to talk about that in depth today. So I'll turn it back over to you, Andy or Nick.
Yeah, I was going to say, there is some other considerations that I think we should definitely talk about too when we're thinking about this entire thing. So the first one is like, how do you elevate the all-in-one aspect of the offering? And I think you can talk about that more in your content and your messaging. And a great example of this is a lot of the differentiating features of Zuddl, at least in my opinion, are only showcased on the site. And who knows, you could tell me, hey, maybe we're redoing the site, or maybe we're redoing a bunch of stuff. Maybe you have like more of the messaging and features coming out. But for example, there's a landing page builder, the broadcast studio, the mobile app, and so much more that might be getting touched on here and outside of the site, but it's not in a way that shows the end client that this is your one-stop shop for running an amazing event. No third-party landing page tools, no apps that are going to require mops to integrate, none of that crap. This is the last event tool you will ever buy. I think it's like doubling down on that piece of it. And then Andy, did you have another one that you wanted to add?
I just wanted to quickly chime in there for who specifically. This goes back to their ICP. Because if you tell that to like, it's only believable with context, I think. That's the key, right?
Yeah, and the big thing too is like, how do you bring that to the surface, to the ICP within the niches that you want to really elaborate, right, and market to, so that it is clear, like, I don't want to be using 5 different tools for my event if I have one that does everything so well. And I think that's the way we need to think about how do we surface those features and benefits beyond just waiting for somebody to get to the site. And then the other thing too is how do we surface more of the representations and the success stories from the end customer that Zuddl's already created? Break up some of that partnership influencer content on the social feeds as an example here, right? You've got great written customer stories. You've got quotes on the site. Elevate them, bring more visuals to them, and showcase them throughout the feeds to create heroes from those testimonials, from those customer success stories. And I think you're going to create that narrative and that flywheel that Mark, you and I talked about even more.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's all about putting attendees at the center and putting people at the center. So the ways in which you can activate the audience at maybe some of your flagship customer events by you attending them on site, even if you might not need to be there, but you as a brand being there and supporting it, and showing that level of support. And then, like you said, Andy, capturing those anecdotes from people who attend that event about the experience pre and then during the event would be an interesting play that I've never really seen done in that kind of capacity per se. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, when I would bring those to market, like I wouldn't use them in like a bashing way, right? Not say, oh yeah, this person was at B2BMX and here's what they found wrong and here's what they like. Like, no, like surface it in a way where it is more value led. It's more educational driven for anybody that's in the event space as they're looking to elevate the experience of what they're putting out there, whether it's virtual, hybrid, or in person. But definitely don't come across as like bashing the event organizer who by chance you're also trying to sell Zuddl on. So Nick, as we bring it on home, why don't you hit us with some recap and some possible takeaways here?
Yeah, so recapping, momentum and growth, keep it going through innovation, testing, maintaining that people first focus. I think that you're doing an amazing job, and I think this campaign's a little bit different because you guys already are doing a great job. Jason is fantastic. I've been working with him, brings a ton of ideas to the table. I know he has even more ideas coming. So keep it going. Just test stuff. Maintain that people first focus. And my 3 key takeaways, you guys can feel free to jump in here, but people first doesn't stop with your target audience. It extends beyond to include the customers as well. How do you harness the power of all stakeholders for maximum impact? That's number 1. Number 2, people first isn't a marketing only initiative. It's a go-to-market moment. It should be organization-wide as it affects all of the facets of the business, including product development, which I think is often getting overlooked. So that's number 2. Number 3 is engaging everyone from customers to partners to influencers to creators, all the way to the end customer, which creates a flywheel, ultimately creating an opportunity for generating more momentum for you while maintaining that people-first approach. So those are my 3 key takeaways. I don't know if you guys have anything to add on your side.
I'll give one. Just I feel like because there's so many competitors, those stats are crazy that you shared, Andy. You have to create something above just a great product and great product positioning and above even solution level positioning. Because like, look, the solution is event management for online and in-person events, right? Product is whatever they call it, they position it. What is the brand level positioning that's gonna like wake me up? I think we did a pretty good job of this at AirMeet with event-led growth. That is now catching on. A lot of companies and people are talking about it. You need something, provocative, interesting, that actually has meat on it though. If you just throw a bone out there and there's no meat, that's not going to have staying power. You need something that has staying power. You need to commit to it for like minimum 3 years, right? Drift committed to conversational marketing for 3+ years. HubSpot, obviously 3+ years. Like you can't expect to do it for a year or 2. And that's what, we ran into that at AirMeet where, we unfortunately weren't able to see it through, didn't have enough time, but, at least it resonated enough. Now others are talking about it. And that's what makes a great point of view or thought leadership category, whatever you want to call it, stick. So I do feel like there's a component of that as well. And Andy, like, I would love to get your take. To me, they also need to be doing in-person events, like a lot more probably, right? Going back to the whole idea of like using your own product, things like that. What are your thoughts as you wrap this up?
Yeah, I think there's the balance there of right cost versus impact, but definitely showcasing the product more, like using that example I mentioned with AirMeet and you with Peak, right? Getting out there in a cost-effective but impactful way to showcase the power of Zuddl beyond just going to the site or having, tuning into any of those live stream events like Nick, you're on one or two of them, I know for sure. But yeah, to your point, eat your own dog food, be out there, showcase it. Whether it's, showcasing it through a speakership, right, a presentation, or just on the ground, right, and talking to attendees like I mentioned. But yeah, Mark, thank you so much for joining today's People First Playbook. Like I said, we brought in an event expert to talk about event management, so it played out really well there. Next episode is set to air on Tuesday, the 14th of November, 12 o'clock Eastern. In the meantime, if you want to get updates on the show schedule, watch previous shows, or submit a campaign or initiative for a potential future episode, check out dragon360.com/peoplefirstplaybook. And for other episodes, check out the TAC Network, and you will be able to watch those shows of past episodes and more. If you have any questions, comments, anything like that about today's show, reach out to Nick, Mark, or I. And until next time, catch you guys later.
Peace.